high, but enough amount of rainfall is available. Okay, as we know, the Western Ghats are the first first of the few geographic regions in India that get the rainfall south that comes from southwest. So this forms a patchwork of grasslands on the slopes and forests, and it provides a natural habitat along with the streams, water bodies in the low-lying areas, not at very high altitudes like the Himalayan pasture belts, but yes, at relatively lower altitudes, Shola grassland is found. Kudremukh is one of the Shola grassland. Kudremukh is an area in Karnataka that has a huge deposits of iron ore. Okay, and Shola grasslands have been destroyed because of degraded because of such mining activities. Okay, so grasslands are utilized by cattle's. Okay, so domestic as well as wild animals utilize these grasslands as grazing areas. Okay, so that is why overgrazing is another threat of shola grasslands. Conversion of these grasslands into irrigated farmlands or into industrial areas is another type of threat. And when the uh, fire during small fires in these grassland in the summer season, the old grass burns down and recirculates the nutrients into the soil where it can be absorbed by the new plants during the rainy, that is the monsoon season. Okay, okay, so what should we do to conserve the grassland ecosystems? Again, we should include them as a part in national parks and wildlife sanctuaries, support the animals and plants which are found in these grassland ecosystems. Okay, create awareness among people. Okay, and then we have desert or semi-arid ecosystems. So this is the third type of ecosystem. First we discussed in the terrestrial was the forest ecosystem. Second was the grassland ecosystem. Then third is desert or semi-arid ecosystems. So these ecosystems are highly specialized and they are also very sensitive. They can be easily destroyed by human activities. The species of dry areas can live in these specialized habitat. How is the climate? Climate is extremely dry. Moisture content in the air is very low. Even the groundwater table is low. Okay. So there are cold deserts in Ladakh in India, and these kind of deserts which are found in the Himalayas in the higher altitude plateaus. And the most typical type of desert landscape is present in Rajasthan, and we know it as the Thar Desert. And sand dunes are characteristics of the deserts. So there are also areas which are covered with sparse grasses, that is grasses in not very high density, not very close to each other. So somewhere here or there is grass or few shrubs, small plants which grow if it rains. So if it rains, then some of the grasses and shrubs, they are able to grow even in these semi-arid conditions. In most areas of Thar, the rainfall is very less and it is not predictable. So it is scanty and sporadic. Okay. In an area, it may rain only once in a few years. So the rainfall, the monsoon comes over these regions once in a few years, and that is why a lot of vegetation cannot be supported by these regions. The vegetation such as the few shrubs shrubs or thorny trees such as kher or babul grow in these desert ecosystems. Great and Little Run of Kutch are also an example of these arid ecosystems. In the summer, they are similar to the desert landscapes. Many of you must be from there. You must have already seen. Okay, in summers, they are similar to a desert landscape. However, they because they are low lying areas and they are near the sea, these areas get converted into salt marshes during monsoon. So as there is a high tide, the water comes into the land, okay, covers the land, and in that water there is a high amount of salt content which is deposited in the marshes, making them saline in nature. During this period, these areas attract an enormous number of aquatic birds such as ducks, geese, cranes, storks, flamingos. Flamingos are endemic species, so they migrate and they are found in India, specific to India. Okay, these kind of flamingos are not found anywhere else. But then wild ass is also endemic to our country. That is, they are not found anywhere else around the world. Then there are some rare animals such as Indian wolf, desert cat, desert fox, and birds such as great Indian bustard and the floricans, which are supported by these desert ecosystems. Some other birds, some common birds are partridges and quails and sandgrouse. So these are the flora and fauna that are supported even in these kind of conditions. And areas of scanty vegetation, they are utilized by camels, cattle, goats for grazing. And in the Deccan Plateau, even sheep utilize these regions, these ecosystems for their nourishment. Areas that have a little moisture, such as those areas which are found along the water course, along the rivers or some small lakes or ponds, they have been utilized for growing crops such as jowar and bajra. Natural grasses and local variety of crops have adapted to growing at very low moisture levels. So that they have adapted themselves, and that has taken a large amount of time to adapt. So that is why these types of natural grasses and local varieties of crops, they can be utilized through genetic engineering for developing those kind of crops which can survive in these arid and semi-arid climatic conditions. So, but similar to other types of ecosystems, even desert ecosystems have some threats. So developmental strategies are one of the most relevant threat, because these desert ecosystems, they are converted into irrigated lands. Okay, so because they are open areas and they receive sufficient amount of sunlight, just by providing water in excessive quantities and utilizing fertilizers and pesticides, these areas, desert ecosystems, some portion of these areas are being converted into irrigated lands, and that has changed the natural characteristics of the region. The canal water evaporates rapidly, bringing the salts to the surface. So because of the heat, because of the climate, what happens? The water that is flowing in the canals, that is evaporated, and due to this evaporation, what happens? The salts, they are coming to the surface. Okay, and that makes the water as well as the soil wherever that kind of water is utilized, it makes the surface saline. The region becomes highly unproductive as it becomes saline. So any region where this kind of water which is having high salt content, wherever this is utilized, it makes the region and the land unproductive. Okay. So pulling the excessive groundwater from tube wells, that also reduces the water table even lower, and it creates an even drier environment where even lesser vegetation can grow. So that is the cascading effect of some of the developmental activities. The Indira Gandhi Canal in Rajasthan is also destroying this important natural ecosystem, arid ecosystem, and it is focused upon converting these land into irrigated agricultural land. In Kutch, areas of Little Run, okay, Little Run of Kutch is the home for wildlife which is being destroyed by the spread of salt works. So there are some farms which are producing salt, and because of that kind of industrialization, commercialization, there is loss of habitat for the wild asses. Okay, so how can we conserve the desert ecosystems? We should first of all understand that they are very sensitive ecosystem. They are extremely sensitive ecosystems, and their ecological balance forms the habitat for various plants and animals, which can be easily disturbed by human activities. Okay, desert people who have traditionally protected their meager water resources, they should be supported. So water resources in these desert ecosystems, that should be supported. Okay, more avenues should be looked into to let grow these desert systems naturally. So Bishnois in Rajasthan, they have been known to protect the khejdi tree during the Chipko movement and the blackbuck antelope for several generations. So we should support these kind of people who are working for conservation of these ecosystems. And national parks and wildlife sanctuaries should also include desert and semi-arid areas. There is a sharp reduction in the habitat available for these specialized species, and it brings them to the verge of extinction. Okay. Then the next one is the aquatic ecosystems. Okay. So in aquatic ecosystems, just like someone told, pond is an ecosystem, aquatic ecosystem. It is a freshwater type of ecosystem. So based on the salinity, the salt content in the water, we can classify these ecosystems as freshwater ecosystem or marine ecosystem, or brackish water ecosystem. So freshwater ecosystem has very less amount of salts in the water. Marine ecosystems have large amount of salts in water, and brackish ecosystems are found in those areas where there is confluence of freshwater and salty water ecosystems. So on river deltas, we find brackish water, which is a mixture of fresh water and marine water, that is salty water. And it provides, the brackish water provides a very good habitat for fishes to breed. So the Sundarbans, that are known for mangrove forests, and that are well known for also for the tiger. Okay, and it provides a very good ecosystem for the fishes also. Okay, these ecosystems provide human beings with a wealth of natural resources. So it provides with fish, crustaceans, which are utilized as food by many. Natural aquatic systems are the rivers, seas, which break down the chemical and organic waste created by humans. But there are limitations to this. Okay, so we cannot load more and more amount of chemical pollutants and organic pollutants into these water bodies and expect them to handle great quantities of these wastes. So we should limit and we should minimize the pollution that we are causing to these aquatic ecosystems. Okay, so beyond a certain limit, pollution destroys the natural function of degradation of these compounds. There is very little fresh water that is available, and that is a key resource for us as well as the animals and plants which are dependent upon these aquatic ecosystems. So plants and animals live in water, and some animals live near water, then and they are dependent upon these ecosystems, such as amphibians. The special abiotic features of their natural habitat are its physical aspect. So how is the quality of water? That is a special abiotic feature of these aquatic ecosystems. So the clarity of water, how clear is that water? The salinity, how salty is the water? What is the oxygen content in the water? So there is some dissolved oxygen content in water. So how much is that? Okay, as we look, why oxygen content is important? Yes, anyone? Why oxygen content is important? Why should we know the oxygen content in inside water?
Marine ecosystems are fish can be live.
Yes, good. So because we want the water to be of that quality which can support the marine life, and that is why not just marine life but aquatic life. Even in freshwater bodies, if the oxygen content is less, then the fishes, the plants, they will die. And similarly in marine ecosystems, if oxygen content in marine water, salty water, that is less, then again it affects the marine life. And the rate of flow. So what is the rate of flow of water? Is it the flow rate is very high? Okay, in the hilly regions where there is a gradient, there is slope. Okay, in those areas the rate of flow of water is high, and in the planar regions the rate of flow is relatively low. Okay, so all of these they define the quality of the water in that ecosystem. So that is very important for aquatic ecosystems. And these can be aquatic ecosystems can be classified according to the flow rate. So they can be stagnant, okay, so like ponds and lakes, or the reservoirs. The reservoirs are also aquatic ecosystems, but they are man-made. Okay, so they are stagnant, somewhat stagnant in nature. And then running water, that is flowing water ecosystems. So that is another classification. The first classification that I told you about was the freshwater, brackish water, and the marine. That is based on the salinity levels. Okay. The freshwater ecosystems, they have streams and rivers, and the stagnant water ecosystems are the ponds, tanks, lakes. Then there are wetland ecosystems. Wetland ecosystems are the special types of ecosystems in which water level fluctuates dramatically in different seasons. So when there is rainfall, these wetlands, they absorb a large quantity of moisture inside the soil such that they act as a sponge, right? So they regulate the flow of water from these areas. So wetlands are also important ecosystems. Marine ecosystems are highly saline. Brackish are less saline than marine ecosystem, but more saline than freshwater ecosystems. Coral reefs are also a part of aquatic ecosystems. They are found in those areas where the depth is not too much. In shallow waters. Okay, we can say that coral reefs are found in shallow waters where the sunlight can reach the bottom of the ocean or the sea. So coral reefs are the second most biodiverse ecosystems, and that they are rich in number of species that are dependent upon these coral reefs. Okay, they are found in shallow tropical regions of the water, aquatic ecosystems. The richest coral reefs are found in Andaman and Nicobar Island and also in the Gulf of Kutch. Okay. Then I told you about brackish water ecosystems. Brackish water ecosystems are found in the river deltas. Where in the West Bengal, the Ganga Brahmaputra river delta is one of the biggest brackish water ecosystems all over the world. Okay, and it supports the mangrove forests, which is again one of the most productive ecosystems, which produces a large quantity of biomass. And when we say biomass, it means both uh, through forest growth of plants and trees, and also through the aquatic ecosystem, uh, catching of fishes and crustaceans and other types of food material. So a large amount of biomass is generated in these brackish water ecosystems. The simplest type of aquatic ecosystem is the pond ecosystem. And pond is a temporary ecosystem which has water only during monsoons, and during the summer season it dries, while lake has water throughout the year. So that is one of the distinction between ponds and lakes. Most of the ponds become dry after rains are over, and then they are covered with terrestrial plants for the rest of the year. When a pond begins to fill in the during the rains, life forms such as algae and other microscopic organisms, they they are seen, they are found in these ecosystems. And then small aquatic insects, snails, worms, they come out of the floor of the pond where they have remained dormant for the dry phase. So during the dry phase, these aquatic insects, snails and worms, they become dormant, and during the monsoon season they come out of the floor of the pond. And then gradually more complex animals are supported by these pond ecosystems, such as crabs, frogs and fishes. Food chain in pond or lake ecosystem, it varies according to the position. So from the periphery, that is from the outside region of the pond towards the center of the pond, the vegetation varies. So near the periphery, near the circumference of the pond, you will find rooted vegetation, and as you move towards the center of the pond, you will find floating weeds. Okay, and on the periphery you find muddy floor. So the floor is muddy, and it it is emerging out of the surface. How surface of how is it emerging out of the surface of water? When the water evaporates, then the periphery, the ground that is near the periphery, that becomes muddy. Okay, as the total volume of water decreases, that's why the periphery becomes muddy. Okay. And as the pond fills in the monsoon, a large number of food chains are formed. So algae is eaten by the microscopic animals, and these microscopic animals are eaten by small fishes, and these small fishes are eaten by larger carnivorous fishes. Okay. These are in turn eaten by birds such as kingfishers, herons, and birds of prey. So even the carnivorous fishes and smaller fishes, they are eaten up by these birds. So not just aquatic organisms, not just amphibians, but also these aviary animals that are the birds, they are also supported by these pond and lake ecosystems. Aquatic insects, worms, and snails, they act as decomposers of these ecosystems. So they feed on the waste material that is excreted by the animals and the plants. Okay, the decaying plants and the waste material that is excreted by animals, that is assimilated by these aquatic insects, worms, and snails. They act on the this detritus. This detritus is the dead matter, dead organic matter, which is broken down into nutrients which the aquatic plants can again absorb. So by their action, what they are doing, they are recycling the nutrients back into the ecosystem where it can be absorbed by plants. So temporary ponds, they begin to dry after rains, and the surrounding grass and terrestrial plants, they spread into the moist muddy region. Okay, so as the volume of water decreases after the rains, slowly and slowly the grasses and the small terrestrial plants, they start growing and they move towards the center of the pond. Animals such as frogs, snails, and worms, they remain dormant inside the mud and they wait for the next monsoon. Then we have streams and rivers. So streams and rivers are flowing type of aquatic ecosystems in which all the living forms, they have adapted. In these kind of ecosystems, the living forms have adapted themselves according to the flow rate. So some of the species of fishes such as mahseer, they have adapted themselves to go upstream, that is from the planar regions they go upstream to the hilly regions where the flow rate of water is higher, and in these waters they breed and they give birth to the eggs, young ones. Okay, so these mahseer fishes, they have adapted themselves to higher flow rates of water and they breed in the higher flow rate water where the water is very crystal clear. Okay, in these regions the water is clear, and that is why it is essential for the eggs to grow successfully. There are other types of species of plants and animals which grow in slow moving water, slower moving water. So in they are found in the planar regions, okay, such as water beetles and skaters. Okay. Then we have the marine ecosystem. Okay, the marine ecosystem, the shallow areas near Kutch and around the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, even in near Lakshadweep, they are supporting coral reefs. So in the marine ecosystem, we have coral reefs ecosystems. Okay, one type of marine ecosystem, and they are only second to the tropical evergreen forest in their biodiversity. So in the richness of these species, they are only second to the tropical evergreen forest. So fishes, starfish, jellyfish, and polyps, they deposit the corals, and a few there are a very few thousand species which support these formation of these coral reefs. Then we have seashore ecosystems. So the beaches can be sandy, rocky, or muddy, and each of these seashore ecosystems, they also support some crustaceans such as crabs. Okay, and on each of these different types of ecosystem, there is a shell covered. Okay, their shells are covered all over these beaches. Okay, and which are supporting some other types of organisms. There are different types of crabs which are found in these seashore ecosystem. They make holes in the sand, and various birds are also dependent upon these seashores. Okay. They prey for the smaller animals and crabs for their food requirements. Even these seashore ecosystems, they are under threat. Okay, so let's see how they are under threat. So you can see the marine ecosystems, the beaches, they are littered with these kind of waste material. Okay, let's see. These kind of discharges, they go through the sea, they go deep inside the sea, and then they discharge the pollutants. Okay, let's see one of the figures. Okay, so how does this occur? How these are the threats? Deforestation. Because of deforestation, what happens? There is soil erosion. So soil erosion occurs when we deforest a particular piece of land, and this soil is eroded away into the sea. So we lose an important component of the lithosphere, that is soil. Okay, which could have acted as a fertile land over which the crops can be grown. So there is erosion of soil due to the deforestation. Then water pollution from the municipal solid waste. Okay, municipal wastewater, other organic wastes, and industrial waste. So even by industrial wastes, these ecosystems are polluted. Okay, by building up of dams. Okay, as we build dams, the aquatic ecosystems are affected. Okay, so because of building up of dams, there is the flow rate is reduced. Flow rate of water is reduced. and due to which there is an effect on the type of organisms which are living in the dams. Okay. Also, the dissolved oxygen content is affected. Dissolved oxygen content is affected. And overfishing. So when we do overfishing, what happens? Again, the animals which are living, the plants which are living in the aquatic ecosystems, they are affected. So what should be done to save the ecosystems, all types of ecosystems? We should reduce the deforestation. We should protect the forests, reduce water pollution. Okay, protect the ecosystems by including them in the national parks and sanctuaries, stop overusing water, limited amount of fishing, and protecting the wetland ecosystems. Okay, so these are some of the steps that can be taken to protect the ecosystems that we have available. Okay, that's it for today. If you have any queries, you can ask. Yes, any queries? Yes, anyone? Any query?
No, sir.
Okay, okay, then that's it for today, and we'll meet in the next lecture. I've taken the attendance. You don't need to write your roll numbers. Okay, good day.